Well, good morning and welcome to PIMC. A little spore that took off from Asia and landed here in Portland, Oregon. Today in the Dharma reflection, I'm going to do an overview of the Eightfold Path. So, hoping to inspire you to be really interested in that and to make use of it, to see what we're doing here, how what we do here fits with that. And please let's begin by, if you wish, you may just remain silent. You may choose to remain silent. You may, I forget how the Miranda goes. Everything you do say will be used for your benefit. But to take a moment and turn to a neighbor and tell them your name and one thing you're grateful for, and also perhaps what meditation, the importance meditation has in your life. All of this in about 3 minutes. So, name, grateful. What do you like? What do you like about meditation? Hello also to those of you that are joining us on the internet. How nice of you to come to. This gong, which some of you heard recently, I was offered as a gift at Hollyhock, at the retreat center. It rings for a long time. And I was reminded of it, of a story that I heard. I can't remember when. It was a long time ago. But it was in a preschool class or a grade 1 class or something where a person was teaching mindfulness. And she rang a gong and she said to her students, just listen to this. And they listened. And then at the end, in the sharing, one of the little boys said, I listened and then I disappeared. Then, of course, we sent him to school for 17 years, and, and then he had to learn how to stop thinking again, finally. But so please join me in singing the Refuge to the Buddha Dharma song. Anybody here for the first time today? Handful. Well, welcome. Hope it turns out to be good for you. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. Dharma, I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, community, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. One more time. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. Sangha, I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Nice. Refuge in that which is awake and the way things actually are in the company of our friends, in the community of all life. Nice refuge. So, as humans have done now for thousands of years, let's sit and do nothing. Let's sit and not even try to be entertained, or we don't even have to try to have fun. We can actually just sit here and be aware of what exists in this moment. I came across a poem this morning that was very touching. It's about how we may take some inspiration from our animal brothers and sisters. It's John O'Donohue, to learn from animal being. Nearer to the earth's heart, deeper within its silence, animals know this world in a way we never will. We who are distanced and distracted by the parade of bright windows thought opens, their seamless presence is not fractured thus. Stranded between time gone and time emerging, we manage seldom to be where we are, whereas they are always looking out from the here and the now. May we learn to return and rest in the beauty of animal being, learn to lean low, leave our locked minds, and with freed senses feel the earth breathing with us. May we enter into lightness of spirit and slip frequently into the feel of the wild. Let the clear silence of our animal being cleanse our hearts of corrosive words. May we learn to walk upon the earth with all their confidence and clear-eyed stillness, so that our minds might be baptized in the name of the wind and the light and the rain. Isn't that a gorgeous last paragraph? May we learn to walk upon the earth with all their confidence and clear-eyed stillness, so that our minds might be baptized in the name of the wind and the light and the rain. We are part of nature. We are the earth sitting, breathing. We take birth and we do our little dance for a few years, a few decades, and then we disappear. So we practice to learn how to dance freely and with great love and compassion. So please come home to this body that sits here. The mysterious, miraculous quality of awareness, phenomenon of awareness, notices that there's aliveness here. Aliveness in the hands, in the face, in the legs. In fact, in our direct experience, there's nothing but aliveness. That's the body. What we feel is its livingness. The Buddha discovered that this capacity of presence, of awareness, of concentration, is developable, is cultivable. And from that comes the practice of mindfulness, of being aware of what's happening now. So we can come home to the sensations in the body as it breathes. What a marvelous thing breathing is. It's like the tides or sunrise or the seasons. It's like the progression of the moon around the earth. 15 degrees per night, per day. This breath is the metronome of our life. coming and going, coming and going. So you can pay attention to it and be alive in the present. And this will make the thoughts, that obsession that the mind has with thinking, creating a past and a future, coming home to breathing makes all of that visible. With the greatest of kindness and compassion, and to the best of our ability, with no violence at all, no coercion. Time and again we come home to the actual sensations in the body of breathing in and out. And the mind may wander off for a second or two or 5 minutes. And in both cases it provides the priceless opportunity to wake up. To realize, yes, wandering mind. And to come back to breathing in and out. sitting down to meditate is a revolutionary act. And like all such acts, it takes great courage. There's the courage to face what's actually happening in this moment, in our particular life stream. It's not at all by accident that we have so many different substances to choose from in order to alter consciousness. It's not an accident that so many of us are glued to our phones and constantly listening or watching. It's no accident that we don't sit still. Because to sit still, to not distract, is to experience what's actually going on in our bodies and minds. One of the reasons we have the refuge in the Sangha is that it really does take the support of community to help us be strong and courageous enough to feel the sadness when it's here, or the fear, or the loneliness, or anxiety. Fortunately, the gifts of meditation come rather quickly. The realization that we really can bear what presents itself. We really are not our states of mind or states of body. So we can learn rather quickly to see self-hatred as what it is, which is psycho-emotional malware, bad programming. We discover that being at home in the body is actually very comforting, despite the fact that there's always some pain, and sometimes there's a lot of pain. It's really remarkable that this kind of revolution in consciousness and our lives is provoked by or supported by simply sitting still, coming home to the breath when we can, and noticing anything else that happens. Such a simple intervention makes a world of difference. And as the mind becomes more pliable and clear, you can notice that first moment when a breath begins to form as a craving, as a longing, a wanting in the body. And then that grows, and then breathing in begins. And you can be with the entire breath, breathing in all the way to fullness. And then fullness passes away and breathing out occurs. This moment in our life is like this. This is how it is right now. It may not be like this a minute from now, or 5 minutes from now, or 5 minutes ago. But right now, this is how the body is, this is how the mind is. It can be such a relief to realize that we don't always have to be involved in a self-improvement project. Sometimes it's helpful, particularly when there are challenging states of mind, to reflect for a few moments how normal they are. Millions and millions of people are having the same experiences as are happening in this room right now. No matter how extreme something is that's happening in your life, with 7 billion of us, there are others dealing with the same thing. Doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, of course, but there's a greater meaning to it somehow. In addition to observing the mind in this scientific, analytic fashion, we can, just with a moment of intention, conjure up a kind thought or two toward ourselves. One that I like to use and have for a long time. Sometimes at the beginning of meditation, I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. Or the shorthand is, I love you with your name at the end. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. Or, I love you with your name at the end. And another, whenever I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. Whenever I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, physically, emotionally, existentially, it is my intention to hold my pain in great kindness and compassion. And we'll finish this time of sitting practice with 2 gongs in the style of Ruth Denison. The first gong is a wake up. It's like, be here. What's happening? And then the second isn't the end of meditation, because once we understand it, there is no end to meditation. It's actually the introduction of whatever comes next, which we can attend to mindfully. And now my favorite question at this moment. Please raise your hand if you feel more relaxed or saner or both than you did half an hour ago. Look around. Sitting here just paying attention results in such well-being. You can save yourself your whole next expensive vacation. Just well, I think it's where we go from here. Jim Dalton's going to lead a little mindful movement, and then our colleague, community coordinator Avi is away today. I'm going to do some announcements, and then I'm going to give a talk on the Eightfold Path. So I hope you'll stay. And after that, there are refreshments, and there's some really nice people to talk to in the other room. It's really quite. Bring them in here. They're here. So please do stay. And Jim, I'm going to putter about a little bit as you get going.
So, we get in touch with our feet on the floor. Maybe go up on the toes and come back. Feel that extension of all the little ligaments and tendons in the toes and the arches. Lots of little points of sensation in the feet. And in the hands, we open the hands and breathe in and sink and squeeze all the air out. It's easy to forget the breathing channels of the nose and windpipe and just imagine all of the cells of the body breathing. All the cells renewing, releasing. And then letting the arms rest for a second. Feeling balanced, feet parallel, supporting weight in a nice even pattern across the symmetry of the body. And then sinking, we'll let the arms rise and draw the breath in and release it. Just aware of breathing, aware of soft shoulders, soft knees, grounded in our feet, and aware of harmony of movement throughout the room. Our friends willingly going along with these patterns, lifting, opening, expanding the chest, coming back, and sinking again. So we can place our awareness on a object like the hand, or we can just let it float on a process like lifting. Everything's lifting, everything's opening, coming back to the center, sinking and then rising overhead, painting a rainbow. The mood changes. Larger movement, interesting object in the imagination. What's the connection between the image and the mood? The image and the sensations? And then shifting to separating clouds. Crossing the wrists, we come up the center, and then separate again. Stronger sense of agency and intention. Rising, turning, spreading open, turning again and lifting the palms up, bringing one palm in, pressing with the other, switching. Harmony in the body, harmony in the room. And then dropping the arms and opening the shoulders as much as we can. And then just following the process of lifting, letting the heel rise, balancing, and coming back to the center, lifting to the other side, returning to the center. The symphony of the boards. Rearranging our weight along the floorboards. And turning to gaze at the moon. Pressing across. And then cloud hands, we reach across, focus on the palm, let the other palm face the earth, draw both hands across, and then they change position. So the awareness can be focused on the center of the palm. Imagining a cloud moving across the sky. But then the awareness can also include the shadow. It can be open to the whole image. Focused on the palm and aware of the process of the cloud casting a shadow. The malleability of awareness. Okay, then we'll get a little more playful with it and splash in the sea, aware of balancing on the foot in front and in the back. Shifting back and forth, opening the arms, reaching, lots of sensations. Riding the waves. Opening the arms. Turning the wrists. And back to the center. We'll step out to the other side. Splash in the sea. Ride the waves. And open the arms. And then coming back to the center, pausing, checking in, the mood of the body, the predominant sensations in a standing form. Sinking, making a fist, and then rising with the dragon from the sea. And then spreading the wings and soaring with the cranes up on the toes. Turning the wheel. Changing direction. And back to the center. Lift one arm and one leg. And then the centering breath, come back at the end to just simplify, release, renew, release. coming in touch with a standing form again, sinking into the knees, scanning the body for the predominant sensations. Contact with the floor, warmth or coolness on the surface of the body, softness and warmth deep inside the body. Perhaps there's still contractions where there were injuries in the past to this body. Just noticing, appreciating the breath. And then gathering all of our experience into one gesture. Aware of sensation, of feeling, of thoughts, thinking, attitudes. It's all here in this experience. And bringing our hands together in gratitude for the opportunity to practice once more. Thank you.
Gregory, would you like to lead off with the Dana request? Gregory Malouf, one of our extraordinary teachers here at PIMC, is he and Christine are teaching a class on the Eightfold Path, which is raucous.
We're rowdy.
We were here on Wednesday night, quite serious about things, and I went in there, and there were 22 people or so, and they were just having such a good time. I felt left out, actually. Yeah.
Well, we had a special musical guest.
You did. You're in from Nashville or somewhere. Yeah, that's right. He's going to be here today. He's for today. Yeah. So
he's hard to get.
It's difficult to book him. Yeah. Yeah.
Robert came in and sang for our class the other day, the Eightfold Path song. Are you going to sing that again?
Yeah.
You're in for a treat. It was the highlight of our weeks. I'm Gregory. So we were trying to inaugurate a new little thing. We do a Dana talk every Sunday, but on occasion you'll have the pleasure of seeing a student up here talking about why we give and why we're a part of this community, just in addition to the talk that Robert gives on kind of generosity in the path and so on. So yeah, I was just going to say a few words about being a part of this community and why I give. I've been here for about 10 years, and I had the privilege of being at the, what did we call it this year? The Fall Karma Yoga Pizza Party? Karma Yoga Pizza Party, which was very raucous as well. Yeah, it was a raging Karma Yoga Pizza Party. If you've never experienced that, you should check out the next one, because it's a unique experience. But it's true, it was a unique experience. I was sitting in the back of the living room with another student, and it was like 15 minutes into the day, and there was just so much laughter. And for the rest of the day, people were getting work done, but it was just laughter, all different parts of the center being taken care of. And it was in that moment that I remembered why I participate in stuff like that, because the connectivity is so awesome. And really volunteering here, giving in any way you can, whether it be service or coming here and giving of yourself to the group as a fellow meditator, it really changes. For me, it's the difference between coming here and having this a meditation center and coming here and this being a spiritual home. It's that sense of walking in, and there's a sense of connectivity and ownership of oh, this is my spiritual center. So that's why I give and have been for a while. So definitely encourage you to take part in the generosity factor of the path when you get a chance, because it definitely keeps giving back tenfold. So thanks.
You want to say something about
consults?
Consults, yeah.
Oh, so we do have consults today. I'll be doing the consults. There's 3 spots. I'm pointing back there, not for the spots. We actually meet back here, but there's a sign-up sheet in the back. So we'll have 3 20-minute spots for those who'd like to sign up. And so we do those every couple Sundays, where a teacher will be able to meet with students. So if you have questions about your practice, or you just want to check in, if you're new to PIMC and have questions about next steps, just put your name down. And for the time that you do sign up, if you could come back from eating, so I don't have to track you down, because I might not be able to find you in there. So thanks.
Thank you. A few announcements. Kirsten is here. Where are you? There she is. Kirsten is the person to see if you want to indulge yourself and do some volunteering here. Oh, golly. We have a list of different opportunities to practice there on the website, and do come different times of the week. Smaller groups, much more intimate than here. And there are also what are called Kalyana Mita, or spiritual friends groups that meet in different quadrants of the city. And you can find out about them also on the website. And they're an opportunity to develop friendships and support that go on for years, some of them. I am offering a retreat at Brighton Bush early next year, the 6th, I believe it is, Friday through Sunday, or Friday through Thursday, or Wednesday, I guess it is. And don't come for the weekend. It's so hard. People come for the weekend and they go through all the difficulty of the fatigue on Saturday, and then they leave on Sunday. It's really, but if it's better, way better than not. But come, and if you haven't done a retreat, it's very gentle. We dance on my retreats. We have lots of silence, and it's at Brighton Bush, which is amongst the giant ancient trees, which we're so fortunate. The fire got within a mile of Brighton Bush. It was really close. So we have a listserv. You can, if you want to be part of the ongoing electronic communication, there's a sheet to sign up there. You can also just go to the website and sign up. And then you can sign up for the ongoing conversations. Sometimes there's a bunch, and right now we're in kind of a hiatus. But then there's also the announcement list, which will tell you when things are happening. It's possible to meet with me individually if you're coming to the center. You can contact Avi, again, on the website, and he'll set up a half-hour, what we call a Dharma consult. Not formal, it's just an opportunity to talk about what's happening in your practice. If that gets too chilly, feel free to close it, okay? In fact, maybe, how are you for temperature now, okay? Okay. Okay, great. It's always very interesting when I go out, meet with the kids or something, and then I come back in, and all this breathing has been happening in here. It's quite, the oxygen's been used up. Why are all the meditators looking so blissful? Well, they're going into carbon dioxide overload. All right. So, yes, Danny.
I was just wondering if you wanted to mention if there's any plans about making PIMC more accessible.
Thank you. Yeah. I love this place. We've been here since 2004 already. It's went by. And within a month after we bought the building, we got our first sound system, which was actually a mistake. And then we hired someone to do the sound, and we have this. Most people don't notice it, but hanging right above my head is a several hundred-pound speaker. It really is right above me. And I saw the hooks they put in, and I feel confident that it's okay. But it's a very sophisticated speaker, actually. It shapes the sound up to about 8 feet on the back wall, and not so good right here, but it's a very sophisticated thing. But we got devices for the hearing impaired, because my mother-in-law at that time, deceased a few years ago, was quite hearing impaired, and so we got that. And but one accommodation we haven't made for us human beings is we can't get in here if you can't walk. And we've kind of moved toward it over the years, and but we're moving forward. I found a person to do the drawings, I think. And if you can imagine there in those middle windows, you folks are in trouble there, right at those windows. You're going to have to move. There will be a beautiful door there, and there will be a ramp. We took some steps out down by the street, and there's now a ramp up to the backyard. But now there's going to be a ramp that comes up into the living room, and then another ramp that comes up the outside and can come in here. And then we have to modify the bathrooms somewhat to make them ADA functional. So that's in the works, and you'll be hearing much more about it. It's exciting. And I know several people actually probably watching right now. Hi. You know who you are. Who can't come because of this barrier. Makes me feel sad right now, actually. And there isn't much accessible to Dharma in Portland because of barriers in most of the centers. I think there's one that doesn't have a physical barrier. So that's a real failing on our part, and we're going to take care of it. Thanks, Danny. I think I'll put my clock on here so I can see what's happening time-wise. There. There are days when I sit here and the words are very close to the surface, and push the button and they come out. There are other times, like today, when my energy is much more indrawn and it takes a little more priming to get them to work. please raise your hand if you've ever been lost overnight. One person. and I don't I don't just mean that marriage or something like that. I mean lost in the woods. How about lost for long enough that horrible feeling came up that you really didn't know where you were? It's pretty scary, isn't it? Yeah. So when you're lost, it's such a great relief when you come upon a trail. One time that I was lost was in Canada. Long time ago. I was a teenager working on the railroad on a signal gang, working on the tracks, climbing telegraph poles. And our cook disappeared. And it turned out he had actually fallen into a raging creek and been drowned and swept away. They found him, 60, 100 miles down the Columbia River, out of the Kicking Horse River into the Columbia. But we mounted, of course, a search for him, and we were off in the woods. And the Rockies in Canada, it's really tough woods. And we did a lot of walking. There were no trails, and so we were walking on logs 6 or 8 feet off the ground because the deadfall was so severe. And that particular time, I was with another fellow. When we found the stream that we knew would lead us down, we were exhausted. Wiped. I was so tired I couldn't take the step. I was living on a train car. I couldn't take the step up into the train car to get to my bed. Someone had to help me up. So anyway, the relief when we found that stream was like, oh, so they're not going to have to send a search party out for us now. That's the way I experienced coming across the Eightfold Path. That I'd been so lost in a way, and I knew there had to be something. There had to be some way of being in the world that would make sense and that could lead me to greater happiness. And I had tried a lot of things. But when I ran into the Dharma in India, I was desperate. I was very depressed, freaked out. Had been for some months. Had stayed as stoned as I possibly could for at least 3 or 4 months. That didn't do it. But I kept meeting these bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young people who would be bright. And I'd say, "What have you been doing?" They say, "Well, we did this meditation course in Bodh Gaya." What a stupid thing. Why would you go sit on your ass in India? It's so much to live and do. But I was very desperate, and I wound up going, and it changed my life. So, another mountain image. I love maps. Those USGS maps that, with the contour lines, and they're so helpful because they are not the territory, but they represent the territory, and therefore they help you from going the wrong way. In fact, to be careful on these tangents, but my girlfriend and I we went trekking in Nepal before trekking was really common, and we went way up the Modi Kola, behind Annapurna to Jamasam. And on the way down, we were pretty skilled mountaineers, and we decided we would take a shortcut over a ridge of Annapurna. And we had this basically a hand-drawn map. There weren't good maps. And we asked the man we were staying with, could we go this way to, I forget the town was Gondrung, and he went this way, Mati. So we thought, oh, is it the Mati Pass? Yes. So we didn't realize we weren't communicating well. And so we took this pass, and it was really difficult. And we camped out at about 14 or 15,000 feet in the snow, which was okay. But then we got to the far side, and then we could go this way down the valley or this way down the valley. Which way do you pick? Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and well, we took this one, which ended up, after descending for thousands of feet, ended up in cliffs and no way to go. So we had to go back up miles and then take the other path. Had we had a map that said what way to go, we would have been spared that. And I had terrible blisters and I sprained my ankle. And that, it was wild. It was wild. Oh, and mati means, I found out later, mati means far and difficult. So, you have to be careful. So, the Buddha left us a path. He had 40 some years to teach. And that means he taught thousands of people. And since he understood the goal, he could see all the mistakes that people were making or had that they'd been making in their lives. How many false paths had they been going down, which then led to having to climb back up. And so, sometimes we, in our seeking, we can make really big errors, and then we wind up, we have deep holes to dig out of. And I guess sometimes even undiggable holes. Unescapable. So, in keeping with my love of maps, and these maps are available on the on the website under Dharma Talks, I think. Let's see what this will do. Will it work? Looking good. Yeah, not bad. Well, big enough. Okay, go to the middle. Talking about the Eightfold Path in this short time, the only way to do it is kind of like a Landsat, one of those satellites that takes a picture of a huge area, and then you can kind of point out large regions. What's the purpose of the map, or to where will it take us? And this is a map that leads to less and less suffering, to more compassion and love, and to freedom. It's kind of a nice map. It's a true treasure map. And it's a map about how to train the mind and how to behave in our lives such that we potentiate or maximize the opportunity, the possibility of actually having experience of answering the question, who am I? Who am I really? Not in an intellectual fashion, but in a direct experiential fashion, which is the goal and purpose of every great spiritual tradition in the world. Certainly the mystical side of every great tradition. They all point at, there's an experience, or there's a something that happens to some human beings where they really are transformed. They become much more loving and compassionate, and they suffer a lot less, and they're much kinder. So how to make that happen? So if we want to train, if we want to be an Olympic athlete, or if we want to be good at something, there are particular skills. Like on a musical instrument, there's learning to play scales, and lots of different things we can do there. In terms of training oneself with this intention in mind, let me see, is this the one? Nope, wrong. Oh, well, that's kind of nice. This is the jewel of the Dharma. This was created by Karen LaPadula. Hello, Karen. For this very purpose, which is these are the aspects of the Eightfold Path that allow us to. It's just a glimpse. Each one. Let me see. These are. Oh, here we are. This is the one I wanted first. So you can see that well enough. I'm me. I've got to be me. There's a little problem with our meanness because it's going to drop back into the ocean, and in the meantime we get pretty frightened. And we try to get to a place of stability somehow, and we think that there's something wrong with us because we can't get to that place of stability, but there is no place of stability. The separate self, all of us in this room, we will all disappear. It's not something we think about much. People talk about, well, Buddhism is such a downer. Well, reality is kind of uplifting in a way. However, what if this little droplet here, what if she or he were actually capable during this lifetime of remembering that she or he was the great ocean into which they're going to drop? That might be quite a relief, wouldn't it? It might reduce our fear of death remarkably, and it also might, we might be able to be much less demanding of circumstances and people, realizing that they can't result in a sense of completion and fulfillment, because little droplets don't get to be completed and fulfilled, they get to be seekers. So, so interesting. Inside here, the mind just goes clunk. How funny! Silence. Pum 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 pum. Oh, there we go. That's better. How funny. I've given 5 talks already on the Eightfold Path, and it was through conversation with people that I realized that I hadn't given an overview. Though there is a great overview. Gregory, where's Gregory? There's an overview that Gregory did 3 months ago. It's on YouTube. It's excellent. So it starts with our worldview. And these maps could be they're huge and they could be very overwhelming, but I'm not going to go there. I'm trying to restrain myself. We live from in a worldview. There's a talk about this just a week or two ago. We live from inside a worldview, and the worldview that we're supposed to, or we're conditioned to believe in, is capitalist, consumerist materialism. And the promise of that is, if you just get enough goods, you'll be happy. If you can maximize pleasant sensations and minimize unpleasant sensations, then you'll be happy. And of course, there's relative. It really is more satisfying not to be sick and to not live in a war zone and things like that. So there's a basic level of kind of health and well-being and getting along with each other. But even when things are going the greatest, there's still this nagging sense of what the Buddha called dukkha. And there's the first talk of this series is on dukkha. Dukkha is that which is difficult to bear, suffering, unsatisfactory. Ruth Denison called it, Dalink, there's always a leak in the canoe. And then there's the big dukkha of sickness and old age and death and so on, having experiences you don't want to have. So remembering to stay at the big view here. So what view would make sense? Well, how about a view that says, 3 Characteristics of Existence also talks about this just recently. How about a view that says, nothing lasts? A view that says, because nothing lasts, we never really can arrive somewhere in the worldly pursuit, because everything's always dissolving. And then the great blessing, the great jewel at the heart of this teaching, the third characteristics, well, why not look with a very well-trained mind to see if you can find yourself? Seek yourself. And the hypothesis within this view is, in so doing, you will discover there is not one. There is not an enduring something here, but there's something here. And in the seeking for this particular person, another experience happens, which is a recognition of our completeness, of our oceanness, of our... The Catholic mystics put it beautifully, which was that I discovered that I was God, that I am God. The Buddhists speak of it differently, that they say the deathless is real, or the unformed, the uncreated, that which has no name, that which cannot be spoken, is real. And one says that with a sense of awe when one realizes it, because then it's the answer to the question we've all been hungry for. It's the question. The Sufis say, this mystical side of Islam, say that there's only one desire, and that's in that theistic vocabulary again, it's the desire for God. I mean, and every other desire, even the most heinous desire, is always that twisted slightly. Right? So, wise view, and then part of this also is the law of karma, that my behavior in this moment conditions the next moment. I gave a talk on karma that's a really important one also, because there's such a misunderstanding of karma in the West, which is more the guilt model, that you're suffering for something you did in the past. That's not what the Buddha taught, really. What he taught was, what's happening in this moment, you have a chance to respond to and plant a seed for the future. Very different teaching. So, if we examine our worldview and we discover, gosh, I'd like to, I think I'd like to try on something else. Then there's wise intention, this one here. Yep, good enough. Intention. How our worldview becomes action is through our intentions. So the shortcut for the intentions in this model are, I'd like to be a Buddha when I grow up. There's actually a little article of that on robertbeatty.com. So what would that mean? Well, I'd like to become really wise. I'd like to understand impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the emptiness of the self deeply. I'd like to really understand the Four Noble Truths deeply, that there's suffering and there's a cause and there's an end to that. This is, again, in a wise understanding. I'd really like to become loving. Right? I'd really like to get to a place where every person that I meet, I realize they're my beloved or they're myself. And I really want to do as little harm as I can, to become harmless, to become compassionate. Nice aspirations, huh? Different from, I want to be the first billionaire to walk on the moon, or and we fall into, we're so easily conditioned. The advertising world really knows how to make us feel inadequate unless we have the next thing. So, if we have a worldview and then an intention, that then, how do I operationalize my worldview? It's through intentions. And then down here, wise speech. Have you blown it badly recently with speech? I had about a 4 on my speech stupidity scale recently. It wasn't terrible, but just remembered someone asked Jack Kornfield, "Do you ever get angry?" And he said, "I'm married." So, but we all have, we've damaged relationships, sometimes irreparably. And so the Buddha said, there's some speech that really to refrain from, and that's gossip, slander, lying, and the colorful one that's really interesting and important is he called it idle chatter, which is 98% of all media. And so much of what we do, just keeping the mind busy and keeping chattering to avoid realizing, whoa, I'm feeling sort of empty in this moment, or I'm really unhappy in this relationship, and as long as I keep chattering, I won't have to realize what's going on. Gossip. We gossip to avoid intimacy with each other and to feel superior to others. But gossip really has a price, because if I am with another and we speak particularly ill of another person, the next time when I meet that other person, there is no hope of intimacy. Because to be intimate, I would have to say, gulp. I feel really crappy because I was with so-and-so the other day and I said this about you. That'd be the only way to heal that. So we can create these inner rifts through gossiping that are really awful. And we pay the price. I mean, there can be a social price as well. But just to have that, they call it, we lose our uprightness of heart. And lying. You ever told a lie that led to another lie, that led to another lie, that led to a mess? I have. What a learning. That's like putting one's hand in a meat grinder, saying, yeah, I know that. I don't want to do that again. And so the more honest one becomes, the more you don't have to remember what you told anybody, because I guess that's probably useful as I get older, as the memory goes down a little bit. It's really good to have told the truth, because then it reconstructs itself. So speech. Marshall Rosenberg always should be mentioned around wise speech, the practice of compassionate communication. We have here at PIMC Doyle Banks, and there are other NVC teachers in town, and very helpful training for that. Not just how not to speak, but how to speak. So this fourth factor, wise action. If my desire is to realize I am connected with everything and everyone, to move in that direction, if I'm doing things that harm my connection with other people, or animals, or the planet really, if I'm acting on my selfish needs, wants, at the expense of others, I can't relax. So I'm going in the opposite direction of relaxing into the greatness of my being. I realized I forgot something in wise intention. One of the intentions that can be incredibly useful is I aspire to become really generous. It's the opposite of taking what's not freely given in the precepts around wise action. That being generous is a practice, and we can practice it day in and day out with ourselves first, but then with others, and that when an opportunity arises to give, to actually stretch ourselves a little bit. So around wise action, you'll find sheets back there with the precepts. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking the life of any living being. Pretty big. And if we just did that with humans, it would be world-changing. Positive statement of that, I aspire to become kind and of service to all beings. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. It's a very sneaky wording, because then anytime you feel greedy, it starts noticing. In fact, an example I often mention is, I really like the pens at my doctor's office. They're good pens, and they give them away. right? They're there. I mean, they're advertising. Their purpose is to get their name. But, I always ask. It feels better if I ask. And then I aspire to become generous to all beings. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from sexual acts which cause harm. Sexuality is such a powerful force, and we can go quite insane. So there's this barrier there. And then the positive side of that is I aspire to use this energy, this libido, to bring beauty and love into the world. Many different ways. Fourth, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which is not freely given. Yeah. What's four? Speech. Oh, right, speech. That's right. We already covered that. And then the fifth, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from intoxicants which confuse and dull the mind. And they, of course, include, I have one here, I have another here, I have another one in my office. This electronic thing is it's a big deal. And there's many other ways that we keep ourselves preoccupied and unconscious. So, I'll take a little breath, starting to hurry. So wise action. How we behave makes a difference to our well-being. Wise livelihood. The Buddha offered a list of livelihoods not to participate in, like selling weapons, selling people, slavery. So livelihoods which harm others or harm the planet, let's say. But then to find a livelihood in which we can practice being kind, being loving, being honest, being integral. And in this, I always think of one example of a fellow that's long ago, a fellow who worked at Precision Cast Parts, and he came to me and he was very troubled because in his Precision Cast Parts was making the casting the nozzles for the Minuteman intercontinental ballistic missile. And he didn't want to do that. And he figured out that what he could do, he went to his boss and said, we have lots of contracts here, including they had contracts for the nozzles that focus the X-rays for chemo, or for radiation therapy. And so he asked his boss if he would not assign him any work that didn't come from the military. Found a good solution. So to look at our livelihood and see if we can shape it toward being of service. I had this friend a while ago. His name was Jim Dalton. He worked at Nike, I think it was. Yeah, it was Nike, and he had this. Nike thought he was hired to do some information gathering thing, but he actually was the big beating heart of the entire department, and everyone came to him. That was his real job. So then, that's the ethical behavior section. And then there's this training the mind section, which is what PIMC is profoundly about. And why is it? Let's see what this one will pop up. It's enough, I guess. There are so many efforts we could do. We can try to develop this and develop that. The Buddha discovered that there are particular efforts that really bear fruit. And they have to do with when the mind is involved in unwholesome states. Eliminate the unwholesome. Let's see what this. I'm always curious. See, it's not going to work too much. Greed, hatred, acting out unskillfully, taking what's not freely given, and so on. Killing. When the mind is all embroiled in them, there's no peace, and it's possible, with mindfulness and concentration yet to come, it's possible to kind of reach out to them and notice what they are and then restrain them. It's not repression, never feel them, but anger, jealousy, despair. These states that are so painful, it's possible to become bigger than them, to notice them, and then to restrain them and bring into being love, compassion, etc. Once they're restrained, to keep them restrained. When you find out what triggers this particular freak out that your mind does, well, maybe you can, I always think of it, don't buy that box of Mother's taffy cookies, because it leads to excessive consumption of Mother's taffy cookies, so just don't get the damn things. It's not my worst advice, but it's one that I can freely share. Interestingly, they're making Mother's Taffy's cookies. They're not as baked as they used to be. I had some just recently. They're kind of pale. So, restrain unwholesome states, and then bring into being wholesome states. We're cultivating a garden here. And what are the key wholesome states? Mindfulness and concentration. Patience, generosity. So I'm going to close this. So that's wise effort. And we do this meditation practice, and I encourage you to do it at home and then to make it an ongoing practice, because it's like developing a muscle. If we want to become skillful at wise effort, then we need to become skillful at observing what the mind is doing. And there's no violence in it, interestingly. It's all done through awareness. Mindfulness practice is a non-coercive practice. Mind wanders, miraculously it wakes up to itself, and then there's, here I am thinking this nasty thought about this person. Actually, that's a place that my practice is at now. With some significant regularity, I'll remember someone that I've had, sometimes a public figure, I've had negative opinion about in the past. I wasn't thinking recently, but there's some of that. Love is necessary everywhere, with every single person. It's the only way we can save ourselves. Love and compassion. But, a small example. Mother Teresa, beloved by many, after she died, I heard some of the stuff about her, how she was kind of nasty, and so on. And I formed this opinion, disapprove of her, my big opinion. But I noticed not so long ago, a thought of her came up, and what came up with it was this nastiness. Why do that? Right? I have no idea who she really was or what she really did. The only sensible place for me to go would be no opinion or appreciation of the good that she did. But this mind was conditioned by a few thoughts, and that was a habit. And I'm noticing that fairly often, that these people that they kind of just waft into consciousness, and there's this, It's crazy. Well, it is. It truly is crazy. It's a form of self-torture. And it creates a barrier. I'm superior. It's really nuts. But the more aware we become, the more, as Ruth puts it, darling, you can no longer get away with yourself. Right? So then, wise effort. And then there's wise mindfulness. Let me just see what it pops up. Oh, there we are. That's not bad. The 4 foundations of mindfulness. The 4 gocharas, the 4 pastures of abiding. We can become aware of the body, the feelings, the pleasant and unpleasant experiences because we have sense doors that happen. We can become aware of the mental patterns, the self, the personality, the neurotic patterns, the stuff we do therapy on, the stuff that we heal over time. And also the basic building blocks of our experience, things like seeing and hearing and smelling and the 5 hindrances and the 7 enlightenment factors. These are all phenomena that occur, and they're quite observable. So this is the analytic. We're taking the self and we're then learning how to observe it very precisely with one purpose in mind. We're learning to see very clearly all the things that we are not. Because they're all in flux. And this way of training the mind has us get so close to them and become so aware of our body sensations and liking and disliking it, and so aware of the personality patterns, and then increasingly realizing, well, for instance, oh, there's the self-hating malware. Thank you for sharing. It's just thoughts. It's just an emotion. Or there's that shame attack. Ah, oh, boy, that. I used to go down, in fact, in my life, I used to go down the toilet with shame, sometimes into depression for weeks, right? Habits learned in childhood. And not only do we psychotherapeutically take them less seriously, but we increasingly are noticing that none of them are personal. And then, so that's wise mindfulness. And then wise concentration. This mind is trainable to be very focused. I mean, to function in our culture, you have to have some significant concentration. But to really go deep in meditation, there's a quality of concentration where the mind goes and not grabbing, but just stays there and penetrates into the object and taken to its it can be developed into very precise, very pleasant concentration experiences that are called the jhanas in the Buddhist world, which are where the mind becomes really, really one-pointed. So, we've been around the wheel. To what end? We have an hypothesis way back at Wise Understanding, which is, we have a question: who am I? Or what am I? And then by clarifying our worldview and our intentions and then our behavior and then working with the mind, we develop a capacity. I think of the particle accelerator, CERN, outside of Geneva, that thing where they whirl some particle at incredibly high speeds and bash it into others, and then see things that we haven't seen before at the most minuscule level. And the same with electron microscopes or the Hubble telescope. We're learning about very fine details of the natural world in exactly the same way we do that with the training in mindfulness, and then in cleaning up our moral and ethical behavior and so on, in order to precipitate clarity of experience. And also to validate this question, the hypothesis, everything's impermanent. Is it? Well, one thing, getting older makes it clear that that's true, because so many things and people and places have come and gone. But that's one level, but there's another level. This self, this scintillating, changing collection of thoughts and emotions, and it gets pretty vaporous too. Very clear at sometimes that it's just, or quite simply, you're sitting in meditation, it's quiet, and then there's no thoughts. And then a thought out of nowhere thinks itself, some opinion about someone. Where did that come from? I have no idea. And then it just disappeared. Can I hang my hat on that and say that's me? It gets less and less workable. Right? The hook gets more and more flat. You try to hang it. So this Eightfold Path is a way of precipitating our deepest understanding that if we're not any of these things, we could start thinking, oh no, I'm going to lose out. But what if all these things are kind of the consolation prizes, which then leave us isolated, and that we could actually have profound connection experiences. And along the way, we become kinder, more loving, more generous, and so on. So the path is not linear. That crystal that I showed you, that is a good example of that. You enter in anywhere, and the rest of it opens up. And it's quite doable. And some of us need remedial work around wise speech, or we need remedial work around wise action. And we all need remedial work around the nature of our mindfulness and concentration, because we can be so much more aware than we ever dreamed. So, I want to sing your song. Thanks. Oh, good. That's encouraging, Ed. Thank you. Need my music. Oh boy, the glasses. Which of the three? Vision is temporary. Vision is impermanent. It's. I discovered recently, or I was told recently, that the beginnings of cataracts are happening. So that's why it's a little dimmer everywhere and a little harder to see. So, anyway, this is a song by Brad Andrews and Michael Shohan. And two beautiful fellows. And I think you'll see why it fits here. Gonna tell you a mystical story about a man named Buddha in all his glory. He was born the son of a Raja, and this is what he thought. You can join in if you know the words of the chorus. It'll come in a minute. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. He grew up a pretty regular fellow, went to school and he acted pretty mellow. Wouldn't have heard very much of him, and this is what he thought. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. He lived a life surrounded by pleasure, had a wife who bathed in nectar, never had a worry or a care, and this is what he thought. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. And this is where it gets serious. He turned 30 and he had a revelation, changed his life, took a permanent vacation, wandered about in some Bodhi trees, and this is what he thought. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. He achieved his emancipation, overcame every last temptation. He decided to share his elation, and this is what he thought. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. The Eightfold Path is a very old path, and you don't have to worry and you don't have to hurry. You got 20,000 lifetimes to figure out what it's all about. The Eightfold Path is a very old path, and you don't have to worry and you don't have to hurry. You got 20,000 lifetimes to figure out what it's all about. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness and concentration. The Eightfold Path is a very old path. You don't have to hurry and you don't have to worry. You got 20,000 lifetimes to figure out what it's all about. I don't find that 20,000 encouraging. Well, thank you so much for listening and being here and supporting me in playing this role, which is a great privilege. And Do check out the other recordings. There's a great book. What's it? Eight Mindful Steps to Happiness. That's the book you're using in the class, isn't it? On the Eightfold Path. And it's just so interesting and enjoyable. Oh, and one last thing. If there's some region of it, some behavior or something where you're not where you'd like to be, just put one foot in front of the other and don't waste a lot of time in guilt and self-recrimination. Because we are all the walking wounded. And our various compulsions and addictions and our crazy behavior in the past. The only sensible thing is forgiveness and starting now. Had a conversation with Ruth Dennison some years ago now when I'd really fallen badly on my face. And she said, Darling, she quoted me from Goethe. And then she translated it. There is no shame in falling down. The shame is not picking yourself up. So we all have things that have not been the most skillful. But starting now, today, we can make a new effort. And the Eightfold Path is a marvelous guide to that. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you to those of you in the internet land. Very nice of you to be here, and let's bring in the wild creatures. Could you push that button twice, Connie? The one with the light, that one. Once, and then again. Great, thank you. Oh, no candle? Oh. The Eightfold Path. Are we out of candle? I'll get a little one. Hang on. No, it needs a candle. Here. Here's a candle. Oh. Does this need a lighter? Huh, it's okay. Hi, Eric. How was life in Kidland this morning? Good? All right. May I hold your hand? Is that a fox? It's cool. So, we have bodies. Because of having bodies, we all know that. Thank you. So coming into contact with this hand and the hand that you're touching, feel the solidity and maybe the boniness. These are our temporary home, a place for consciousness to get around in. And it's one thing to practice with this remembrance we are stardust and so on. It's another to realize that we actually are here, incarnated in separate forms. Precious, one of a kind, ever. And so we don't deny this incarnation. In fact, our aspiration is to become more and more fully ourselves. And in so doing, to remember our true great nature. So please give the hand on your left a little squeeze. And maybe you'd make a little wish for that person, to turn your heart toward kindness. And then the person on your right, to give that hand a little squeeze. A blessing. And let's extend this blessing to our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. We're all here in this fabric of life for such a short time. And we all belong. So, we come to a moment of singing and then blowing out the candle. Who's these two? Okay. How about, would you tell us your names? Oops.
Do what you want to tell us your names.
Naomi,
Yeah. What's your name?
Zola,
That's right.
Okay, that's great.
1, 2, 3.
may all beings
Be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hand this back to you.
All right. Well, shall we do the blowing out ritual today? I think we should. You think so? All right. So everyone in the room gets to participate in that. It's not just, you can also come sit in here anytime you want. You have better odds of being the one that blows out the candle.
I don't even know if this is open.
But we can, so we can all make a wish, the ancient practice of making a wish on a candle. And then take a really deep breath, and I will do the count. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes! It was a positive extinction. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, dear friends on the net out there in TV land. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye. See you again next week. Hang on, let me get rid of this.